Hello students, welcome to CivicCentre IAS. In this class, especially on Daily Economy series, we are going to have a discussion on Banking Amendment Act 2025, which has brought some criticism also, and at the same time, numerous acts that were presenting and governing the India's banking structure, whether it should be for RBI or any banks. These are completely overhauled and it has been replaced with the new Banking Amendment Act 2025. So before discussion about this Banking Amendment Act, let's understand about some of the uh, committees, especially Narsimhan 1 committee and Narsimhan 2 committee. These are the two major pillars in India's banking sector, especially for the early stages of banking reforms. So these amendments have been brought from Narsimhan committee 2, especially. And at the same time, there are some coordination issues, especially if you look at the regulatory bodies, not only banks. These banks are regulated by RBI and in SEBI and Investment Insurance Regulated Development Authority of India. These are different types of regulatory body. These are consistently monitoring and consistently working towards the greater autonomy for financial institutions in this country. So obviously there is a conflict of interest. So the government has come up with these amendment act. So let's look at what are the different acts that have been brought under Banking Laws Amendment Act 2025. It was amendment. Have come into the force aiming to enhance banking governance, especially if you look at the recent issues, especially plaguing banking sectors, especially there is a NPA crisis, and at the same time, cooperative banks, majority of the cooperative banks are shut down in this country because of dual regulations. One is regulated by RBI and another one is regulated by state registers. So to fix these problems, the government has come up with this initiative. And audit transparency, especially if you look at auditing in these banking sector. Earlier case, it was with RBI and central government has come up with a auditing should be done. But because of this act, it has been completely given to public sector banks. So the banks itself will decide to whom they have to submit their audits. So obviously we can expect more accountability and transparency in audit profession also. That is also one of the issue. Strengthen depositor protection. Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, which is a dedicated body especially for created for, let's suppose if banks have any bonds, shares or balances, leftover balances in these, obviously it will be kept in these Investor Protection Fund Authority for 7 years. If no one has claimed these funds or bonds or shares, obviously it will be used for corporate governance, corporate sector. So that is also deposit protection, and bring cooperative banks under a more robust regulatory framework. So now more or less these will come under RBI. So if you look at key amendments, RBI Act 1934, Banking Regulation Act 1949, State Bank of India Act 1955, and banking companies acquisitions and transfer of undertakings. Whenever any mergers and acquisitions should be happened, then these acts comes into the picture. 1970 and 1980. So these were banking laws. So what are the key reforms? The first one is revised substantial interest threshold. So what is this substantial interest threshold? Let's suppose if any bank, the bank promoters should have 5 lakhs to 20 crores or 10% of paid up capital, whichever is lower, so that it should not have any conflict of interest in function. So that is the substantial interest. Second one, cooperative bank reforms. So obviously the dual control of these cooperative banks would come under one umbrella. So mostly it will be controlled by RBI. So these cooperatives were also mentioned under your fundamental rights, Article 19 subclass 1. So everyone has a authority to establish cooperative banks, cooperative societies. That is also new buzzing word in Indian economy and politics. Investor protection and fund. So obviously the leftover shares, debentures or leftover money, these will be collected through Investor Protection Fund Authority. Then obviously after before 7 years, if anyone has to claim their bonds or shares, then obviously they will take away. Otherwise, these money will be utilized for corporate governance. Next, audit quality in public sector banks. In earlier cases, the audit will be done through RBI in consultation with the central government. Obviously, these bodies, RBI and the central government, has fixed the price for auditing professionals. But according to this act, it was completely given a chance to public sector banks itself so that they can have their own decision regarding auditing. So these are the basic areas where you need to focus more on your Banking Amendment Act. So if you look at with reference to the Investor Education Protection Fund under Companies Act 2023, consider the following statements. The IAF is established to promote investor awareness and protect their interest by managing unclaimed dividends and shares. So that is the major point. Second one, the IEPF authority can utilize funds for reimburse legal expenses incurred in class action suits by investor. Third one, shares transferred to IEPF are sold immediately to fund investor education programs. So here the word immediately, it is a culprit word, right? So generally 7 years lock-in period is there. After 7 years, if no one has claimed anything on the shares or dividends, then obviously it can be utilized for investor education programs and other programs which are relevant for your corporate governance. So the third one is incorrect. So first and second one would be the correct answer. So here you need to focus on Banking Regulation Act, Reserve Bank of India Act and SBI Act, and at the same time, whenever any mergers and acquisitions happened in public sector banks, then obviously this Banking Laws Amendment Act is very important. So that is the brief discussion about Banking Laws Amendment Act. So if you have any doubts, feel free to mention any type of queries in YouTube comment section, and at the same time there is a dedicated Telegram channel. So if you have any doubts, feel free to ask us. Thank you once again. Have a nice day.